life is full of difficult choices. Do I stay in bed? Do I get up early? Do I buy Pokemon Red? Do I buy Pokemon Blue? Or do I buy a biscuit? Or do I buy a cake? Cake, obviously. Cake. Still, the furry fandom is no different, and there's lots of difficult decisions you will have to make as a furry. And I thought this week, myself and Theadore Rabbit would take a look at some of those difficult decisions. Now, this is probably one of the things you will see the most around the place on Twitter or Telegram or whatever, and it's the "you don't need a fursuit to be a furry." And you know what? It is true. I didn't have a fursuit when I first became a furry. I saved up for one, but I know quite a few furs who don't want a suit. Maybe it doesn't work for them, they don't feel that side of the fandom, and there's so many things you can do as a furry without a fursuit. You can get art, you can go to conventions, there's no exclusions except, well, even the fursuit walks at cons sometimes encourage non-fursuiters to join them to take pictures and everything else, so you're not even missing out on that. So, anyone who tells you that if you've not got a fursuit, you're not a furry, they're lying, but, it's your decision, and it's a good one. Take it seriously, think about it, don't rush into it, research the makers, make it a big decision, and you're going to love it if you get one, or you'll be happy if you don't, but don't feel bad if it doesn't work for you.
So one of the major decisions when you get your first fursuit in the fandom is whether or not you decide to go partial or whether or not you decide to go for a full fursuit. Now, both have their pros. I would say that partial suits are a lot quicker to get into and they're a lot more customizable because obviously you can choose your own clothing, you can choose your own accessories, and obviously swapping and changing that is a lot easier. Full suits take a lot more work to get into. But at the same time, give a lot fuller look and a lot more of an inclusive version of your character. But obviously you have to think of things like padding and extras and things like that. But there is no real negatives to either side of things. I myself, though, do have both partial suits and full suits. Partial suits are better in the hot weather. Full suits are better in the winter. So really, even the bigger fursuiters tend to have partial versions of themselves nowadays. And of course there are also things like 3/4 suits as well, where you get to see the legs, but the rest of it's still clothing, and obviously that gives a lot more of a visual kind of, effect to make it look like you've actually got a full suit on. There are lots of customizable ways of doing things.
So it's the weekend, it's been a busy week, and you're not quite sure. Do you have a relaxing weekend at home? Maybe watch a few DVDs, catch up on the internet, whatever, sort out your artwork, do what I should do, and maybe update your Fur Affinity account, Or do you grab your fursuit, or even just yourself, and head down to your fur meet and hang out with everyone and be like super social? I find this a lot, is you don't always have to be social, and I've seen people say, "Oh, I felt I had to come to the fur meet because I feel like I missed." You will feel like you missed out, but you don't have to be social all the time in the fandom. It's okay to stay at home and have a bit of you time and just enjoy yourself. Heck, even invite a few furs over and have your own little mini gathering. Happens here quite a bit, trust me. So fur meets are fun and they're awesome, and I absolutely love going to them, but don't feel pressured into going to them just because you have to. The case of the London Furs one, they're for 3 weeks anyway, so if you don't feel like going to the fur, the one this weekend, there's only a 3-week wait until the next one, and that's great. So, it's your choice, but it's a tough one.
Okay, so it comes a point in every furry's life where they have two cons, no matter whether or not they're overseas or not, that they're either on at the same time or very close to each other at the same time. Now, everybody's only got limited funds, and it's always difficult to decide as to which one you want to go for. Now, do you go for the smaller convention, where you would meet, like, smaller amount of people, but you might get more quality time with them? Or do you go for the big conventions like MFF, where you're going to see such a broad range of furries, of such a broad range of fursuits, and a broad range of different things, but at the same time, you might meet one person and never see them again for the entire con? It's very difficult to decide. So the best thing to do is to look at what your friends are doing, get all the information together, look at all the guests of honor, look at what events that you personally are going to want to do, and of course, you never know, if somebody you know that you really want to see is there, maybe that's a good idea to go that way instead. You never know, you might meet a famous fursuiter that you want to meet at one particular convention, so take a look on social media and see what they're doing as well. These kind of things are all something you need to kind of think about. It's never just easy to make one decision.
So this is a decision that a lot of furries have to make, and it's, do you tell your parents that you're a furry? Now, maybe some of you younger furs, maybe a bit more open about it, your parents are a bit younger and a bit cooler, so they were completely fine with it and you were quite comfortable telling them it. But, I mean, from my personal perspective, I've at the moment decided not to tell my parents. My mum sort of knows, she thinks it's cosplay. It's not. But my dad doesn't know, for example, and that's a decision that, you will have to make as a furry. It's, some parents are going to be super supportive of it. Theadore Rabbit's mum is brilliant with it. She owns a fursuit. I mean, that's really cool. But, some parents won't react that way. They might see it as weird. They might send you off to an island in the Polynesian for some kind of commune there to distance you from the fandom. But, it's a risk, and you're going to have to gauge your reaction and make a decision, because I won't lie, it does get harder and harder to pretend you're not a furry, especially when you're like, oh, I'm going to a convention. What's the convention for? Gaming, yes, about games. Nothing else. Oh, that's nice. Or even affirming, what did you do last weekend? Nothing. I walked around London dressed as a giant raccoon. So it's a decision you're going to have to come to, and I'm sure you're going to make the right choice. And hey, the fandom will back you up with every choice you make on that one.
So, you've just moved into your own house, or maybe you've had to move back in with your parents again, and you've got your own little space. Now, as a furry, one thing will eventually reach your mind. Do you decorate your place with furry paraphernalia? Now, most people can get away with obviously plushies, things like that. Well, some parents are a little bit odd about that kind of thing, so you're going to have to think about that. But, the really kind of first time it really kind of shows properly is if you put up pictures, posters, things like that. Because at that point, everybody's going to pretty much know. Now, obviously, if you're living on your own, that's your own space, but then you have to think, do your parents come over? Are you going to have to hide everything every time they come over? Or are you just going to be open and proud and just go for it? Obviously, you could also go as far as changing things like, I don't know, the welcome mat. I've seen many furries have furry welcome mats, furry doorbells. And of course, you got other things like your car. If you've got your automobile, you might want to put some stickers, or some people even go as far as having custom made spray paints and stuff on your car. But of course, you're going around in public with this, and unless you really mind it, these things can be sometimes a bit of a sticking point, especially if you go to work. But you got other things, of course, like when you get in, do you have like your fursuit openly in display? Some people have their fursuit standing up with mannequin arms. You can't hide that, but at the same time, it looks fantastic. These are all decisions you have to make.
So, telling people you work with, now that is a difficult decision. Do you let the people you work with know that you're a furry, or, do you kind of keep it secret? I kind of sit in the middle personally. All my profile icons at work are like fur related, and heck, I've got a raccoon on my wallpaper at work, but people just think I like raccoons. I've kept it that way. Now, some people might find that they're in a workplace where it's kind of really cool. I know people who've even fursuited in the office because their boss has been that cool. But obviously it's a difficult decision, because if your office workplace doesn't quite think you're a furry, being a furry is a cool thing, they might look at you a bit odd then. And hey, I mean, personally, I like it when people leave me alone at lunch at work, but maybe you're a bit more social than me at work and you don't want to be the one that's on your own at lunch. So again, that could be your decision. I'm just that quirky guy who works in IT, so, you know, whatever. Still, if you do tell work and it's a lot of fun, then you've made a right decision there. But, you know, it's a tough decision. And honestly, sometimes keeping silent about things is better, but, you know, that's up to you. All I'm going to say is definitely don't tell people in the interview, as tempting as it is when they ask you, ooh, what do you do as a hobby? Yeah, don't tell them you're a furry there. This is awkward. That's not a difficult decision at all. I mean, you know. So there we go. That is some difficult decisions that we thought of. Have you got some ideas of your own, or want to share your thoughts on the decisions that we've mentioned earlier? Drop it in the comments below and I'll check that out. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button or subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to consider supporting the channel, I've got a link to my Patreon below. Check that out. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Have fun, everyone. Bye!